Right. Today on Adversity to Strength, I'm joined by Verma. Anu's story is one of extraordinary resilience, having survived childhood sexual abuse, suicide attempts, an abusive relationship, and years of living in survival mode. She knows firsthand the devastating impact trauma can have on every aspect of life. For years, Anu coped through self-destructive behaviors, people-pleasing, overworking, and constantly searching for external validation while feeling increasingly disconnected from herself. Eventually, she reached a point where she knew something had to change. Today, Anu has transformed those experiences into a mission to help others understand trauma, emotional resilience, and the long road to recovery. Drawing from both lived experience, professional practice, she speaks openly about the realities of healing, challenging the myths that recovery is quick or straightforward. In this episode, we discuss childhood trauma, suicidal addiction, toxic relationships, emotional regulation, rebuilding self-worth, and what it truly means to heal after adversity. This is raw, honest, deeply moving conversation about survival, hope, resilience, and finding the courage to rebuild your life after trauma. Anu, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for that fantastic introduction and for having me on. I'm really looking forward to this.
Absolute pleasure. I've been looking forward to you coming on for quite a while. Take us back to the beginning. Where did your journey start?
So you kind of summarized it in a nutshell there, and I guess yeah, it all stems from my childhood abuse that I endured from as young as 3. And it's interesting because I speak to a lot of people, and we all have the same explanation where even though it was hard to actually understand the age, it's just that age that keeps not like during my whole healing, it's age 3 that keeps coming up. And I don't even know for how many years it was, because it was just how that tenant was in the home, because I was easy access to him. And he basically just made me do some horrendous things to him. And at the time, you don't know what you're doing. You trust in these adults, and you trust that
Yeah.
whatever they're making you do, that it's okay to do. And so I do remember I had a lot of flashbacks. It was during my healing when I was in my late 20s, early 30s. And it was during my flashbacks, a lot of the things that he used to say to me kept coming up. And it was all about, this is our secret. You know, don't tell anybody. And, if you say something, then bad things will happen to you and your family and your mum and dad. So obviously, just hearing those thoughts, then it forms a whole belief, in our life. We then form this whole way of living where we don't speak up, because if we speak up, then bad things might happen to us. And that shaped how I had my relationships, because in my relationships, I wasn't expressing myself. I didn't know how to communicate. If there were any issues to resolve, then I'd just try and either ignore them, or I'd shut them down or suppress them or just run away from them. So I wasn't actively dealing with any kind of conflict in a relationship. It just made my relationships awful, not only with my family, my friends, but in my intimate relationships as well, because I was just depressed. That was like my whole life. Heck, I didn't think much of myself. My self-worth was so rock bottom. And when you're in that low vibrational state, then you're going to draw certain partners as well, like intimate partners. You're
Yeah.
going to draw those partners who see that. They see vulnerability
Yeah,
written on a
definitely.
forehead. And that's why I was then attracting these manipulators, controllers, emotional abusers, just toxic people into my life. And it was just, again, it was a sequence of partners as well that I had. It wasn't just like one partner. Like, but I had a partner, it weren't working out because he was either probably a druggie or an alcoholic or an abuser or a manipulator. I had a narcissist, I had a sociopath, I had them all, like literally, which is why I ended up writing a book, because a bit like your story, people were like, oh my God, that happened to you? Why don't you write a
Yeah.
book? And I did. I'm really glad that I wrote that book, because it just shows the trauma cycle that we get in when we're just consistently attracting these partners into our lives. And I wasn't even having a break between the relationships, because I needed that validation. I needed someone to accept me and to feel wanted by somebody. And so I just go from one relationship straight into another, even overlapping. Like I've been in a relationship, it was coming to an end, and then I'd already had the next partner planned out so that I didn't have to be on my own, because being
Yeah.
on my own was scary. Being with my thoughts, my God, no, let's not do that. I couldn't even sit at home and watch TV because it meant that I had to relax. Because, as you know, I was in the fight, flight, and freeze responses, constantly trying to keep busy so that I didn't have to sit with my thoughts. So, not only did it jeopardize my whole relationship, the childhood trauma, but it also jeopardized just how I was in my professional life as well, and the ability to just relax. I just couldn't. So I'd be working like 70, 80 hour weeks. It's just ridiculous. When I look back now, I just think, wow, I was an actual robot. I was just on
Yeah.
autopilot, just working all the hours God sends, dissociated from myself, not understanding what it meant to be conscious and present, because I wasn't present. I don't know where I was, but I had zero emotion, zero feeling, because everything was just numbed, shut down, and suppressed as a result
Yeah.
of the trauma. So that's quite deep, a deep explanation about how my life went as a result of the trauma. And this is why the work I'm doing today, I'm just so passionate about making people understand the impact that trauma has on us, and how, it's important for us all to understand our life journeys and to become self-aware so that we understand the patterns that form as a
Yeah.
consequence of the trauma. Because only having that self-awareness and having that realization, it's only from that can we then do something to heal, finally heal, and to live a life that we truly deserve.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly it's what I say to clients about patterns and habits, belief systems, and a lot of times people don't know them through. All
Mm.
the trauma's been blocked out, but the effects of the trauma is still there, still never going
Yeah.
away there. And a lot of people don't realize why they're struggling in life, especially if it's
Mm.
something through childhood there as well. When did you realize that something wasn't right? Because sometimes we just think, is this life?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I remember having some real dark thoughts like this, so vivid, because I just thought that I was going to die, like literally my whole life. I remember explaining it to people, thinking that I was in like this dark hole, like in space, they've got that black hole. I felt like that was my life,
Yeah,
like literally in that
yeah,
hole. And that was it. What in the future, there was only death for me. So that's how I was living my life, just waiting to die. And because I didn't understand what it meant to be happy. I didn't understand what it meant to be fulfilled, to have a healthy relationship. Like all of that was just foreign to me. And okay, so I had flashbacks. A lot of the flashbacks that I had regarding my perpetrator, they actually came about in my intimate relationships. And that was like in my kind of
yeah,
late 20s. So that's when it all
yeah,
started to come
yeah,
about. And I remember the stench, like, again, this is a PTSD response, it's the smell. Like whenever I'd be trying to get intimate with a partner, that smell would come up of this dirty. His name was Bill. He passed away, so it's fine. I'm okay naming him. It's just that horrible smell that that I had
yeah,
to obviously do things to, and that
yeah,
stench
yeah,
came up, and I remember just feeling so sick, and then I had to literally just get rid of my partner because I associated him with that smell. So it did, it affected all my relationships, and then yeah, you get flashbacks, but you're still not quite understanding. Like you're not putting two and two together, are you? And it was only really about probably about 5 years later when I started to do some proper deep healing work, which was Reiki. I did a lot of Reiki. I did a lot of emotional freedom therapy, hypnotherapy. It was all these like spiritual kind of interventions that I had when everything started to make sense because I was releasing a lot. I was opening up my energy levels because all my chakras were blocked. And it
yeah,
was
yeah,
just that energy as it was flowing, things were coming up and things were making sense. And again, it wasn't an overnight realization. Again, probably 5 years after that, that
yeah,
I could actually sequence the events together. We block so much, don't we, in our bodies? There's
yeah.
just so much hidden within
Yeah,
us.
there's so much, and even when there's things that are not blocked out, we still have those thoughts that are in our mind on a daily basis, and we'll be like, "Oh, it's at the back of
Mm.
my mind, it's at the front of our mind," but we can often normalize it because we're so used to it. And even though it's in front of us, causes us pain, we're still looking for something else. When did you realize you needed to change something? Because when you got to that point, where would you say your life was at that particular time?
I had a few rock bottom situations, and again, it revolved around me just trying to end my life. And I mentioned earlier that a lot of my coping strategies consisted of overdosing on recreational drugs. Like I was a massive ecstasy user, and not only ecstasy, I'd be double dropping, and then I'd be drinking loads of alcohol, like bottle of like vodka. So a lot of the times I'd end up in casualty, in A&E. I say casualty because I used to be at like these festivals, and I'd wake up in the casualty tents all on my own, and the nurses and doctors were around me saying that, you were literally, you passed out, like, where were your friends? But I used to lose all my friends on purpose because I was a bit of a free spirit, and I just wanted to go and be reckless on my own because I knew that being around my mates, they'd stop me, they'd
Yeah.
tell me to like just behave. I just wanted to go out and just meet random people and do crazy, crazy things, because I had zero respect for my life.
Yeah.
And, you just think, wow, like I was just totally reckless. And there was an incident in Gran Canaria where we were on like probably a second story building. It wasn't a tall building, but I remember looking at the pool, and I went to jump in the pool, and because I thought it would be funny. He'd be like, "Oh wow, that pool! I just want to go jump in it." I wasn't going to land in the pool. I was going to literally land on the floor and probably either kill myself or get badly injured. And so I went to jump off it, but it was like a bit of a leveled balcony, and then I ended up not falling. Ended up actually hanging, and I damaged the whole lot of my front body as well. My mates they were like, "What are you doing?" And they dragged me up, and it took the whole holiday. But then I thought it was funny because that's just how I felt. Like I
Yeah.
felt danger was funny. There you go. It's the nervous system dysregulation there. So that was an incident, and also just kind of got out of this toxic relationship, and I'd went away for the weekend, and I'd come back to, and my whole property was just totally destroyed, where he'd graffitied all my walls with like lipstick, calling me a slag, slut, and horrible names, bitch. And he'd cut all my clothes, he'd slashed my sofas. There was this fish smell, like he'd literally got these like tinned fish hands, and he smeared them all over my apartment, in my cupboards. Basically, thousands of pounds worth of damage in my Manchester apartment. And I remember just coming back, and he'd already threatened to blow my car up. He basically said that if I went to the police, and he was gonna, then the next time I went into my car, it was gonna blow up. And I believed him because he was a dangerous man, and he was working in probation, so he was well connected with a lot of the criminals. And I knew that he was capable of that. And so, because of fear, I never pressed charges. And I remember that night just waking up in this fish smelling apartment. And I woke up to the sounds of like crying. It was like shouting, wailing, crying. I thought they were like witches. And I just woke up, and I realized it was my soul crying, like screaming out because she was so hurting. I just remember just crying. So it was about like 3 a.m. in the morning. I just cried so much. And that's when I realized that, things have got to change. So I realized the next day that I needed to just leave my whole life in Manchester because it wasn't serving me up there. And I'd been there for like 12 years. And I did. I packed up and I left the city. And that's when I started to heal, I guess. It was because they say as well, just getting yourself out of a certain environment.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's what you need to do, don't you?
Yeah. For
Mm.
me, you tend to be a product of the environment you're in.
Mm.
Change the
Yeah.
environment. You need to change the people. If you've got a good set of people around you, you're probably going to feel life's going to be a lot better if you're around with, say, like I had, people I know that's been around other drug addicts. They're drug addicts as well.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
leave drug addicts. They stop taking drugs. So the environment is everything for me. It's one of the things I say as a therapist when especially when I meet a new client, I want to know what their environment's like because it has such an impact there.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that's so true.
Did you feel that was rock bottom for you? Yeah, it's pretty awful.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say so. I mean, I guess, yeah, just trying to kill myself, and then and I guess the silent scream, like I call it silent screams because that's what it was. It was like
Definitely.
my soul cry. I guess it was because the reason why is because I knew that my mental health was at rock bottom. Like it couldn't get worse than that. Like, I mean, it was already like my whole life was already just awful. And, I was just had these crazy like trauma responses, like the overworking and just the trauma cycle of constantly going into these awful relationships one after another and not being able to be conscious or present, just really dissociated, like people talking to me and I'd be looking straight through them because I found it hard to register what people said to me because I was just like a robot. So I just felt like, yeah, those two incidences, I felt like they were my rock bottom.
When you had your rock bottom, did you know the root cause at the time was the reason why, or do you still not got to that bit yet?
No, I think at the time you don't realize you do the
Too much going
analysis
on in the
after, don't
present.
you? Yeah, you just think that it's just a shit time that you're having. And so it's only really over the past 5 years that again things have started to make even more sense because your whole knowledge just evolves, doesn't it? And
Yeah,
it's that self-awareness, the wisdom
yeah,
that we gain,
yeah.
from listening and learning. And and this is why, it's hard. I mean, for someone who's undergone trauma, it would probably be hard for them to start writing a book in their 20s and 30s because they can't make sense of anything at the time.
It's like with yourself, you obviously you wrote your book there as well, and for me, writing mine, and everyone, the amount of authors that I spoke to, and even the lady that's editing the book, it's so therapeutic in itself. But the amount of things that come up, there's things that I'm writing about that and memories, trauma
Mhm.
related, some of the time, not always, that I haven't even thought about for a million years, and then they're coming up in the book there as well. I'd
Mm.
imagine that
See.
happening to you a lot when you started writing.
It did, yeah, and it never I hadn't my intention wasn't even to write a book. It started off as a journal. I had a coach that I
Yeah.
met at one of the Tony Robbins events that I went to
Yeah.
because his personal development like events had
Yeah.
such a massive impact on my life as well because I learned all about beliefs and needs and values and yeah, I felt like I really needed that education. But like yeah, I had a coach from one of his programs as well, and he was basically pushing me like, "You need to start journaling." He's like, "Just write down stuff about your
Yeah.
life," which it's not making sense in my mind because I had it was all like a threat in my mind. It's the amygdala working. Whereas obviously when we start writing, then it's the prefrontal cortex part of the
Yes.
brain, which helps you to logic and reason with these events.
Yes.
So yeah, I didn't realize it at the time. It was so hard. It was not easy for me to write about my thoughts about my life events. Like I remember it took me ages to even like make sense of things. But again, it was a gradual process, but when it started to make sense, so much linked and so much came out, which again, I hadn't even spoken about stuff like even in my book, like I've not even mentioned much about the suicides, and I've not spoken openly about the abortions I had to have because of the drug rapes from being intoxicated. I blame myself because I know and I know I shouldn't, but I did blame myself, and I had carried a lot of shame around that. The fact that I was the one that got intoxicated, I was the one that had vulnerability written over me, and so that guy
Yeah.
decided to take advantage of me, and then I was the one who had to get rid of the baby on my own, so I was the murderer. So much shame and guilt that you
Yeah.
carry, and I couldn't even talk about that in my book because I still carried it. And again, through time and through healing that I've been able to get over that as well. So writing, I'd recommend it to everybody. Start somewhere. And like in my sessions, like in my PTSD course as well, that I've been trained in, we do like a timeline of events where we start from when
Yeah.
we were born to now, and you have stones and flowers. Like I've got so many stones and flowers in the house, and you put a stone on the events that left a negative imprint on your life. So the negative things that happened to you, the stone goes there, and then the flower goes on the most, the beautiful events that happen in your life. Things like if you remember a beautiful birthday, or if you remember playing with your friends, and just having like a whole timeline of events. Like normally these are like an hour sessions that I spend with my clients, and they just learn so much about how certain events in their lives have impacted who they are today. Again, the pattern sequence, you learn that from understanding your whole life. So I just think it's such a beautiful exercise that we should all be doing at some point.
Yeah. Journaling. I'm a big fan of journaling. Not for everyone, but for a lot of people that do it, they're like, Lee, what do I write? Just write anything. It doesn't matter. There's no right or
Yeah.
wrong. Keep going.
Yeah.
The dam will burst. And it does.
Yeah.
And I've said to clients, I said, you start writing, you'll be coming back with like load of A4s written. But you think, yeah,
Wow.
next session, they're like, Lee, do you know what? I couldn't stop writing. Once I started, that was it. All the time, all the time. And it was like it for myself. I remember sitting down with the book I'm writing and I was like, oh, I ain't going to do an hour. And I was like 5 hours later I'd like 2, 3 chapters and it just kept on coming. And I'm like, oh, I forgot what I've got to get this down. I've got to get this down. I've got to get this down there as well.
Yeah.
And it's
I
so
love that.
it's so because it's so writing is more powerful than talking, which makes sense. So
Yeah.
it's so helpful.
Yes.
With yourself, how did you? So you're at rock bottom. You've moved back from Manchester to
Coventry. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And what did you do then at rock bottom? Going, well, I'm
Mm.
looking from the bottom of a wow all the way up to the top, and somehow I've got to figure out how to get there. Probably a place you've never been. So what was the next steps?
Well, again, I still had the trauma response of, either I stay there, I fight, I freeze, which I was freezing anyway because he was doing awful things to me, like giving me like opium tablets so that it would make me basically have sexual intercourse with him because I just froze, and so he'd do that to loosen me up. So yeah, he was doing awful things to me, and I allowed him to because I needed that feeling of acceptance, didn't I? Because I sought that external validation. So still had that trauma response in me. So I didn't escape Manchester thinking, yes, I'm going to go home and start therapy. No, the first thing I thought, right, where could I run away to now? Flight. I was like running away. I've been doing that. Like I'll be jet setting around the world. So yeah, I came back to Coventry. Whatever stuff he hadn't destroyed, I left it at my parents' house, and I booked my ticket out to travel to Southeast Asia because when in my early 20s, I did a lot of traveling. I spent like 16 months backpacking around the world. Again, escapism. And I don't know, there was something about Southeast Asia that really won my heart. It stole my heart. And it
Yeah.
was because I'd spend just hours on end at these monasteries, Buddhist monasteries, just sat there, just like, absorbing the beautiful energy and just like sat with the monks as well, like just how simple and blissful they were. Like it made me so emotional just being there. And I knew that I had to go back there. I needed to experience that. And I did. And wow, okay. I did sit with the monks because I remember just being in Nepal and waking up at like 4 a.m. to the sound of chanting because I was staying right in the monastery and just waking up with these monks and meditating with them, which I struggled to do, but I did what I could. But then I was like, you know what? I just need to keep traveling. So in the end of it, within 4 months, I'd taken 36 flights in 4 months. Absolutely horrendous, ridiculous. I'd be sleeping overnight at airports, waiting for the first flight out. And because of that, I did get burnt out of traveling. I was kind of done with traveling
Yeah.
after that. Even
Yeah.
now, like traveling doesn't appeal to me anymore because I just totally overdid it. But during that trip, I've seen all of Indonesia. Like Indonesia has many different islands, so I would be jet setting to all these different islands and all of Philippines as well. I saw Nepal, India, went back to Thailand, Burma, and Bhutan. So I did so many countries; it was just ridiculous. But I was glad that I did it, and I needed that. That was me utilizing my nervous system dysregulation to my advantage by exploring the world. So I was glad in a way that I'd always make my nervous system dysregulation actually favorable somehow. But like with the overworking and overachieving, we're just constantly making sure that we're above the normal range, making sure that we've got the best certificates, making sure that we're over exceeding targets and making sure that, we're earning loads of money. So, I use that aspect to my advantage as well. But then having all that money enabled me to travel more as well. So, see what I mean? Like, if people just used to say, wow, Annie, you're so successful. I'm like, no, I'm so damaged. You know, but externally, I look successful. I
Yeah.
was so damaged. It's unbelievable, like what people portray as successful compared
Oh,
to
yeah.
what reality is.
That's the thing. People assume that they make an assumption, and especially when you've been through the childhood trauma and abuse, you've just got this internal fight going on with yourself that, you wake up mentally exhausted, mentally drained, and you've got to somehow start the day, let alone go to work and do these things there. And people don't tend to see it on the outside, what the battles that's going on in the inside. And it's very exhausting, especially when people think, oh, your life's great. I'd love to have your life work for a moment.
Whatever.
Which bit?
God, it's so funny, isn't it? And again, a lot of like what I'm talking about today, these are realizations that have only come about in the past like couple of years, really. See what I mean? We just evolve, don't we, in our whole learning and our whole life patterns and what like the overachieving. I never realized that was actually a trauma response until recently.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. For myself, I couldn't understand why I have to master subjects. And I mean,
Yeah.
I kind of quite like it because I'm a super nerd anyway, but I didn't realize it's trauma response. I had no idea. I just thought I was highly motivated for certain subjects.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So you mentioned about like the Wolf of Wall Street. I'm mentioning that movie now because you had a guest
Yeah.
star from there. But no, you mentioned about the fact that you worked there with on that. And when I was just talking about the hits, like hitting the targets, I guess that was probably a trauma response for you, right? You had to over exceed in that role.
Um, in what role? In what role?
Three, I think. Were you doing sales?
Yeah, in sales. The sales is crazy because it was like a Wolf of Wall Street where it was. I mean, I'm very clean living, always have been, and you've got like almost the entire sales floor that are on coke, and there's a lot of money to be made there as well. People just reading a bit of paper and getting paid quite a lot of money. So that you look at a car park and there's all these like young guys with like Mercedes, BMWs, 4x4s, and a lot of them are like just spending the money as quick as it come, that kind of thing. And there's a lot of sort of traumatized salespeople there as well. And you could tell with their moods and, people will be like drunk and on drugs through the day while they're on the phone making sales. Very, very sort of, and there's crazy things that went on there, night stuff like that. But for me at the time, I had that like empty void inside. There was no fulfillment and the money was great, but I was just doing the same. I was buying a BMW, I was booking holidays, things like that. But I found myself getting worse and worse and I didn't struggle more and more. And I didn't want to do sales. I had no fulfillment in the sales. I was literally reading a bit of paper every day and making the money and doing a job that I hated. And one of the guys I work with, he said he just finished reading a book called The Happiness Hypothesis. It's one of the best books I've ever read. Far Eastern philosophy with modern science. And I read that book and it felt like I was reading about myself. It was very common. And it made my mind up that I want to do something different. And I was thinking of, because I was at the time trying to deal with unresolved issues that I didn't even know what they were. I was watching a lot of Tony Robbins, because I thought that he was great. Tony Robbins, Les Brown, people like that. So I thought, well, maybe I want to be like a motivational speaker or a life coach. And then a therapist said to me, I reckon you should be a counselor. I didn't even know what it was, really. And then she explained it. And before you know it, I've enrolled in a college course and I've passed it and I'm level 3. And then before you know it, I'm juggling full-time life with being at university as well. And then suddenly you're going off to be a therapist. And it is the first time I did something that I actually give me some fulfillment, that I actually wanted to make a positive difference there. And since then it's kind of evolved, obviously podcasting and wanting to speak and write, that kind of thing, so it grew there for me. What about yourself there? Because you've got, at the time, you've got a long way to go just for yourself. And obviously you've gone such a long way. So what was your next steps after like getting back to like starting all over from the traveling? Because the traveling's got to end at some time.
Yeah, it did. It did. And I mean, unfortunately, yeah, it wasn't really an happy ending from there because universe still had other lessons for me. So I came back and straight away into a relationship with a narcissist. Literally, it not even been a couple of weeks since I'd been back and I met someone. It was my birthday night out, and yeah, I met someone. And again, I didn't know what narcissism meant at the time.
Yeah.
I didn't understand about love bombing, but yeah, he did all of that. It was literally like after when I reflect on his proper textbook style narcissism. And at the time, I just thought it was weird, some of what he was doing, but unfortunately, he did financially abuse me. And what happened was like he basically used my credit card to buy himself like an 8 grand Panerai watch. And he made up this whole story about how he had this like business and, he's making so much money. And, but he left his credit card at home and he's like, just, can I just use it? He's like, literally, the money will be back, the money will be back in your account on Monday. Obviously, at the time, I was like, of course, can. You're a successful businessman. Of course. Yeah. So I was there, handed over my credit card, which was used to buy himself a watch. And of course, the money never came into my account. And so I was there begging him, just thinking, like, what's going on? Pay my credit card off. Well, what the heck? You've got this watch. And so obviously it just went downhill from there. And then I lost so much hair, I was stressed. I couldn't eat, I wouldn't sleep in because I was just like, because I thought it was love that we had. But it wasn't. Anyway, I ended up taking him to court and I won, thank God. And it was my first ever feeling of victory, my first ever feeling that I've actually got a bit of power, a bit of control. And it felt very different because it's the first time that I've ever actually fought and won. So I felt like, again, the universe did that because I needed to feel that. So that made me quite strong because, I mean, even now, like every month, he's still paying me back to this day. So I see his horrible name come up on my bank account. But again, it's a constant reminder of victory. Hence my brand,
Yeah.
Victim to Victor, and my book. So that happened. But then, okay, I won him in court. I went to Peru to try and just get over it and to have a bit of a holiday, a bit of a break from all the stress. Another sociopath in Peru. He didn't live in Peru. He lived in Poland, but he was just like implantologist. I just met all these nutters. It's crazy, right? I mean, I laugh about it now, but obviously at the time it was horrendous. Anyway, this guy again, total web of lies, total emotional abusive guy. And it turned out that he had about 6 different girlfriends. And so he had this long-term girlfriend called Anna. And then he brought me in. He had this girl in Indonesia, another girl in Costa Rica, and another girl in Japan. And again, all of this came out. When you talk about Netflix series, I mean, this could make it as a Netflix series because he played us so well. None of us had a clue what he was doing. He was so good at the lies. Like because he was this like implantologist, he traveled a lot with his work and also he was a salsa dancer as well. So, he had the charm and he'd take us all on these lovely holidays, but then he'd go off for like an hour or so because he'd be there FaceTiming all his other girls. So we realized that, afterwards when we created a WhatsApp group and we were exchanging photos with each other about, he was with me. They're like, yeah, but look, he sent me this. So it was crazy, honestly. And then that was it then. I had enough. I was like, right, I'm done. I was like, I just don't need this in my life anymore. So that was pretty much the last of the toxic partners, finally. Because again,
That's
there
good.
was a bit of like court thing going on with him where he was trying to sue us because like we created his videos about him on YouTube to warn people, and then this defamation case open. So yeah, again, there was another court kind of thing going on with him as well. But I was done by that point. So obviously, it's great going through these experiences because that's what makes us resilient. And I always say, we learn a lot from these crazy events that we have, and I don't regret any of it because I guess that was the ending of the toxic, relationship where I then knew I'd gained so much knowledge around, different people and how to detect liars from those experiences that I just feel it just made me so attuned. So I went on my spiritual journey then, where I trained as a Reiki master, I trained as a
Yeah.
yoga practitioner. I did all my emotional freedom therapy courses, hypnotherapy courses. So I focus on just getting myself like so switched on so that no one would ever try and, do harm to me anymore. And I guess, that's probably what brought me on to obviously writing my book and then doing my podcasting, helping other people through my trauma coaching. And that's where I am today.
When you look back now, how different is your life? I mean, obviously it's extremely different, but how do you view where you are now to compared to where you decided to rebuild your life from?
Totally different person. I don't even recognize
Yeah.
myself now compared to back then, like just totally different. I mean, just even my whole physique as well. Because I was carrying so much trauma, I was heavy. Like I was like one or two sizes heavier. And even though I was doing like marathon runs and all sorts, and I still wasn't losing the chub. Like I remained chubby. And because of the trauma, I feel like, we carry that so much. See, even the way that I look, like my face was heavier. And this is why, like now, I just feel that I look and feel so much younger now at 46 than I did back at 26. I was a mess. And look,
You
I'm
think
not gonna. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but this is why we got to release that trauma because it just changes.
kill you. Stress kills you.
Yeah,
Trauma,
it
yeah,
does.
unresolved build up inside. This is what, as a therapist, if I've got clients that are bursting into flood of tears, I'm like, great, let it all out.
Yes,
Let it out.
get it out.
Yeah.
Absolutely, crying's great, and I love to have a good cry, and I do because I know that ultimately it's going to help me. Because the worst thing we can do is to hide things and not deal with them and brush them under the carpet, compartmentalize stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you need to
And
get it out.
that's why a lot of people that's been through, especially the whole childhood abuse, is that they want to speak out because they were made to be silenced for years. The
Mm.
shame, the guilt as well. So then when they go and actually I want to do the opposite, it's empowering for them, and then it can help so many other people. So
Yeah.
it's good to have that strength to speak out. That's empowering in
Oh,
itself.
it is. And I know people struggle with vulnerability, which is why it's even more important for people like me and you to be sharing our stories and to keep creating that noise. And oh my God, you see, like if people want to follow me on social media, you should see a lot of my posts. They're triggering because I'm just say it as it is. I'm dead open, honest about stuff. And normally it's real life stuff that's happening to all of us, and I've got like a few, like when I do my posts there, deep and heavy, and it takes me a while to actually even get to actually creating those posts because it's all about, for me, it's all about the value rather than quantity. I'm not
Yeah.
about just posting every day for the sake of it. I like to be intentional with it. But I just feel like by us creating that noise and us normalizing these conversations, it's going to help people to be more vulnerable and to talk more about their problems, because that's how we're all going to be able to heal and live much more fulfilling lives.
Yeah, without
Mhm.
doubt. And in order to do that, you have to heal. You have to deal with the trauma as best as you can, accept I've got trauma, process it,
Mm.
do the
Yeah,
techniques, all the things you need to do to get to that stage where you can get to a point where you're enjoying your life, you're fulfilling things there, and you're not just stuck being traumatized day in, day out.
exactly. Yeah,
What's the what's
definitely.
what's the future looking like for you? What have you got planned? Because you've done so much to get from where you are to where you were to where you are now. So what's the future looking
Yeah.
like for you?
Well, I want to keep spreading the noise, the message of just self awareness and being authentic. If have it like being the CEO of your own life and having your own journey
Yeah,
planned and not following other people. And so, with my journey, it's always been about that. It's always been about whatever it is that I want to do with my life, not what I feel like other people want me to do. And yeah, it's been great releasing my book because my story's out there and I'm loving like my podcast guesting. But I also want to, like, I'm also in the film industry now as well, where we've created our first ever film. It's a sci-fi thriller, but that's because I was part of a team of five of us co-producers. And again, it's just great to just get out of my comfort zone, learn something new, and do something that a lot of people would dream of. And this is it. I just feel like we've all got to get out of our comfort zones and really challenge ourselves because that helps us to grow and it helps us to be happier. There's no point in remaining stuck and in your comfort zones. So that's
yeah,
what my whole future is. It's going to be me just keeping challenging myself and going out of my, whatever feels comfortable because I just want to make the most of my life. And,
yeah.
I
You,
want
you
to
make up for
die
lost.
having,
Yeah, you
yes.
make it up for lost time.
Yeah,
Absolutely. As you look back over the
absolutely.
previous how many years, you're like, I could have done so much more. And when you realize
Yeah.
that and you're at that place with the healing, you start trying to do as much. There's not enough hours in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's how I feel. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I love that. So yeah, and I just feel like the future's so bright for all of us, and we've got to just be in the flow and just let it take us. But yeah, I'm not about forcing. I'm not about trying to force situations or force projects. I'm just like whatever is going to be aligned with me and take care of my mental, my physical and emotional health on a daily basis. I'm into like obviously gymming it, but I'm also into connecting with nature. That's why I've not I've got like a load of grass in my garden because I love my grounding techniques that I do on the
Yeah.
grass.
Yeah.
And, I do like I'm a big believer of affirmations, gratitude,
Yeah.
and just feeding our brains with positive self-talk because whatever we feed into our brains, that's what our nervous system's going to start believing. So let's feed it with positivity, try and stay clear of negativity. Like, I don't watch the news. I have no interest in propaganda, and you don't know what's real and what's not. So I don't even entertain that really. And even your social media, don't use it as an escape. Use it as a way to learn, to
Yeah.
grow, and start following like inspirational accounts that are going to help your brain and to help you to be better and live better. Yeah, let's just try and, not entertain toxic positivity as well, because I hate all
Yeah.
that. But how you doing? Yeah, I'm fine. But you're not though, are you? I hate all that.
Yeah. It's okay not to be okay, as opposed to
I'm
that.
not okay. But then
Exactly.
people don't want to hear that even.
Oh, I thought you would be. Anyway, let's get on to it.
Anyway, yeah. Anyway, stay positive.
Yeah. All the best. I'll get that many times, but I love your mindset. I love how passionate you are about it, and it's so impressive how far you've come on the journey, and just there's so much more to come from you, and all the things you do and are so positive there. And talking to you today has just been great, fantastic. I love speaking to you. Thank you, Anu, for coming on today. It's been brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lee. It's been an absolute pleasure. Really enjoyed this. Yeah, we got really into the story, and I love that it wasn't just surface level. Thank
No,
you.
yeah, can't do surface level. What's the point? All your links will be in the description for the episode as well. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, and yeah, anyone who wants to find out more about me, connect with me, just jump onto Instagram or my Facebook, LinkedIn, and yeah, it'd be great to connect with you all and to share this journey with you. Thank you.